What does it all mean?
This is where the archaeology has been found.
Oh, hi, how are you? Well, look at that.
I need a planter.
A shrine to a belly button.
This is a rock salt? Look at that.
No one gets into this place.
No one.
Nice. Whoa, don't take me too far.
Now that's naked archaeology.
In the last episode, I went looking for proof that King Solomon was a real historical figure. Because let's face it, without him, the entire messianic bloodline, from King David all the way to Jesus, falls apart. And that would be very bad, because that means no Christmas, no Hanukkah, and no Easter. So I looked into the Bible, which says Solomon raised a tax to build the house of the Lord and the wall of Jerusalem and to fortify Hatzor, Megiddo, and Gezer. I went to Jerusalem, but finding evidence of the temple Solomon built is impossible now. The Muslim Dome of the Rock stands where the temple once stood, and digging there is forbidden. I also visited the ancient sites of Megiddo and Hatzor, and I found two almost identical gates that could have been built by Solomon. In fact, Amnon Bentor, the man who excavated Hatzor, believes the gates there do belong to Solomon.
No.
Somebody's living room?
No.
What is this?
It is the Solomonic Gate.
But at Megiddo, archaeologist Norma Franklin says the gates there don't belong to Solomon. She says they were built hundreds of years after Solomon died.
Solomon never saw it, even if he came to Megiddo. We don't even know if he came here.
It's a stalemate, two very different opinions and so much at stake. But I'm determined to find evidence that Solomon not only existed, but was a great king of Israel. So I'm going to keep looking. But before I do that...
This is the Falafel Place. And why am I here? Because I'm on my way to find King Solomon. And I can't tell you, nothing makes me hungrier than looking for evidence of King Solomon. Moti, tell לי אחד ככה special. Look at that. Layer on those spices. Oh, I'm hungry because I'm looking for King Solomon. This is a thing of beauty. Look at this. Look at this. This is delicious. I've been thinking about King Solomon. How could the Bible describe him as this amazing guy who has 1,000 wives, who builds the house of God, who's the son of David, it's the messianic line. He builds these amazing cities.
Let me repeat that. The Bible says Solomon was king, and there seems to be archaeology that matches the biblical description. So, what's the problem? In the end, the biggest issue is whether the Bible should be used as a tool for archaeology. You see, there are two different camps when it comes to biblical archaeology. There are the maximalists and there are the minimalists. The maximalists use the Bible as a reference for archaeology. The minimalists refuse to.
And all these archaeologists, these minimalists, they say he didn't exist. And the reasons they give is...
Or in other words, the minimalists use a very different approach for dating archaeology. The way they do it, Solomon disappears. The debate between minimalist and maximalist archaeologists has always been heated, but it reached new levels over the now famous Yoash inscription. Back in 2003, an antiques collector named Oded Golan introduced to the world an ancient stone that contained an inscription that could have provided firm archaeology linked to Solomon's temple. Here's what the inscription says. I am Yoash, king over Judah. I renovated the breaches of the temple and the surrounding walls and the storied structures and the meshwork and the winding stairs and the recesses and the doors. Maximalist archaeologists celebrated the find as the first concrete proof of Solomon's temple. But the minimalists were quick to declare the stone a fake, claiming that some of the grammar in the inscription could not have been used in ancient times.
Difficult to believe, isn't it? It's impossible to believe.
Soon after, Oded Golan was charged with fraud and the stone was confiscated. Golan maintains his story that the inscription is authentic, and many leading scholars agree. Here's why. 8th century BCE, carbon particles were found on the stone. Ash was burned into the stone from a great fire, which corresponds to the destruction of the temple by the Babylonians in the 6th century BCE. There are also minute flecks of gold fused into the stone, corresponding to the gold used in the decoration of the temple. Finally, the inscription corresponds to a passage in the Bible concerning the repair of the temple. But whether you side with the maximalist or the minimalist, the point for the time being is moot. Recently, the Antiquities Authority found an Egyptian artist who has confessed to faking the Yoash stone. And unless the controversial confession is debunked, the stone no longer proves anything. In the 1980s, another artifact showed up in the antiquities market, and experts thought this 3,000-year-old ivory pomegranate may have come from Solomon's temple. What does an ivory pomegranate have to do with the first temple of God? Let me explain.
This is a pomegranate. It has a magical quality to it. Look at it. It's literally royalty, fruit royalty. It wears a crown, and it has special status in the biblical tradition. You say a special blessing over the pomegranate, and it's said that there are as many seeds inside the pomegranate as there are commandments, 613 in the Bible. The temple high priests used to have pomegranates on little staffs when they used to perform the ritual in the Temple of Solomon.
The ivory pomegranate caused a bit of a stir when it first showed up on the antiquities market, not only because it dates back to the first temple period, but because it also bears an inscription that says, "Belonging to the temple of the Lord, holy to the priests." Or, in other words, belonging to Solomon's temple. But before we examine the controversy surrounding the ivory, I want to get a taste of the symbolic importance of the pomegranate. And what better place to start than a juice stand in Jerusalem's marketplace?
This is my friend. I'm interested in pomegranates.
Pomegranate.
Pomegranate important, right?
Pomegranate is the best herb.
They're holy, right?
613
613 seeds in the pomegranate.
Yes.
But my friend counted them, and there was only 550.
You have to count another one.
It was a defective pomegranate?
Yeah. Now look, this is the pomegranate. You see this like crown?
It has a crown.
Now, the Star of David is like this. That's why the Star of David.
Oh, the Star of David comes from that crown?
Yeah.
Oh, let me see. Oh, I see. Oh, my goodness, it's a Star of David.
The pomegranate truly is a holy fruit.
You get a star.
613 seeds for the 613 laws of the Bible, and the crown that may be the origin of the Star of David. Unfortunately, the ivory pomegranate has left a bit of a sour taste. After years of being displayed as a real artifact in the Israel Museum, it too has now been declared a forgery and removed from display. The controversy continues. We kind of struck out on the artifact, so I'm going back to the Bible. The Book of Kings says Solomon fortified several cities in ancient Israel. I've visited 2 of them already, but archaeologists can't agree on whether they belong to Solomon or not. But the Bible mentions a 3rd city that Solomon fortified, the city of Gezer. Let's see if we can find some Solomonic gates there. In my search to find evidence for a historical King Solomon, I've discovered a war being waged by 2 camps of archaeologists. The maximalists who believe the Bible should be used as a reference for archaeology, and the minimalists who believe that the Bible is not historical and shouldn't be used in the field. The biggest battle is now being played out in the ancient cities that the Bible says Solomon fortified. So far, I've visited 2 of them, Megiddo and Hatzor. But the archaeologists there can't agree on whether they belong to Solomon or not. So I'm headed for the 3rd city, Gezer, to break the tie. According to the Bible, Gezer was actually a dowry payment from the Pharaoh of Egypt when his daughter was married to King Solomon. But before handing it over, the Egyptians burnt the entire city to the ground. Some dowry. If Solomon was as big as the Bible says he was, he would have rebuilt Gezer and left some big things behind. A big city with big fortified gates. I'm looking for big stuff with Ofri Harari, the man in charge of the site.
This is a pretty awesome site. I was expecting something much smaller, but this is
it's a large city.
Large.
Very large city.
Look at that. I mean, this is beautiful. This is real. It's still standing. Tell me where we are and what the significance of this place is.
We are standing in the middle of the Casement wall. This wall surrounds the city from 360 degrees around the city with about 14 to 25 towers, watchtowers, and I think there's some more gates on the other side.
So what you have is, as they would have come up, they would have seen these huge walls. How high?
I guess in some ways it would be 4 meters, 14 feet or so.
That's high.
And considering they're coming from the lower side, from the valley, and then looking at a big monument of a city in front of them, and then as you go inside, you can go into the living quarters and the city itself.
The city itself. I'm going to go down there if you don't mind. I'm stepping into history, literally. This is King Solomon's time. I mean, we're talking about 3,000 years ago. I mean, can't you imagine the life of this city? You got a wall over there, you got a wall over here, you've got people doing things. This is a room. You see the cooking area, you see the walls. Look at this. You still have pottery shards. You see the defensive walls. You could see right into the valley. You see the strategic importance of this place.
The fact that Gezer was fortified 3,000 years ago, in the 10th century BCE, is a strong argument for Solomon's influence. Now I need to find the gates to check if they look like the ones I've already seen at Megiddo and Hatzor.
Okay, let's go to the gates.
Let's go to the gate.
So this is it. This is the Solomonic Gate.
Yeah.
I've never sat in a Solomonic Gate before. I'd like to sit one.
Sit down. Enjoy yourself. Sitting in the middle of the street, on the steps of the gate.
Look, it's being invaded by the bourgeoisie.
Oh, yeah. When you actually sit inside the gate, you can see how big it is, how strong the stones are, and you can even see the hinges.
Hinge, where the doorposts were.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the other one.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, we're talking about a 3,000-year-old structure. You can just see the wooden doors.
The casement-style gate at Gezer consists of a thick exterior wall and a series of 6 interior chambers or rooms built into the gate, exactly like the gates I saw at Megiddo and Hatzor.
I have to say that this is a payoff. This is an archaeological payoff. You know, like oftentimes you go, you travel, you go to the ends of the world, and there's 2 stones in the ground. I get excited, you know. But here, it says in the book of Kings, Solomon fortified, he built Hatzor, Megiddo, and Gezer. We're at Gezer, and there's the fortification. Why isn't this place like one of the wonders of the world?
Maybe in the future.
The evidence for King Solomon and the gates here at Gezer is pretty convincing. But as much as it matches the biblical narrative to the T, minimalist archaeologists are suggesting that the gates here should be dated later, not in the 10th century when Solomon was supposed to have been king. Once again, 2 teams of archaeologists fighting over dates, and Solomon is left hanging in the balance. Who do you believe? I need something more, something to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that King Solomon was here. So, back to the Bible for clues. The Bible says that Solomon didn't build the temple alone. He had the hired help of a foreign king, Hiram of Tyre. Perhaps if we looked for Hiram, we'll find evidence of the deal that led to the building of the Temple of Solomon. I'm looking for one more piece of evidence that can prove the biblical Solomon is fact, not fiction. So I'm taking another look at the Bible, which tells me that Solomon, son of King David, built the first temple to God in Jerusalem. But it also says that he didn't build it alone. He had help from a neighboring king, Hiram of Tyre. He was the king of the Phoenicians, the coastal Canaanites. And in return for helping him and bringing the cedars of Lebanon to build the temple of God, King Solomon gave him something. He gave him basically the tribe of Asher. I don't know how happy the Asherites were, but that's what he gave him. And I'm in Kabul in the Galilee. And that was center of the tribe of Asher. And I heard that archaeologist Zvi Gal may have found the smoking gun, the connection between Solomon and Hiram of Tyre. Zvi Gal, you found something amazing, at least that's what I heard. Yeah. I came schlepping all the way to the Galilee.
You see pile of stones, but it's an interesting story.
It's a pile of stones, right? But we're in Kabul.
Yeah, we have biblical Kabul.
Biblical Kabul. We're not in Afghanistan.
No. This village over there is modern Kabul. It's a mile to the south, the closest modern village to this side, and it's named Kabul. So when I started my research, I decided to look for an Iron Age site in the immediate vicinity of modern Kabul.
Now, Iron Age, we're talking about 3,200 years ago.
Yeah, and when we first came here, we saw two things. One, we are very close to Kabul, modern Kabul. But on top of this, when we started our survey, it was all Iron Age.
That's a good technique. You find the biggest pile of stones.
And you start?
And you start digging.
Well, you have to be smart enough to find a pile of stone. Then it's halfway to the discovery. The first season, we found this section of the building, and I call it fort, although it's a very small structure, but I use the term fort because it's fortified by a wall. So I started to ask the question, who did it? Who built the structure and for what purpose? The first clue was the architectural style. If you look at this wall, over there you can see dressed stones, headers and stretchers.
Headers and stretchers? The technique of alternating between the ends and sides of bricks, called headers and stretchers, is used to create very sturdy walls. And it was the Phoenicians who were famous for this type of construction.
This was the first evidence. I say, wait. Maybe we got a Phoenician background for this structure.
And which king of Israel had most relationship at that time with the Phoenicians?
Solomon, of course it's Solomon, yeah.
I love it, it's like a detective story.
Yeah, well, it's an archaeology detective story.
It's fantastic. In the Book of Kings, it says that Solomon gave the land here in Kabul to the Phoenician king Hiram of Tyre. And when I come here, I find buildings constructed in the Phoenician building style, headers and stretchers, a style that King Hiram perfected when he helped Solomon build the first temple in Jerusalem. But is the brickwork here at Kabul really enough to prove what the Bible says about King Solomon? Not entirely, but Zvi Gal has one more piece of evidence that may seal the deal. I'm hot on the trail of evidence that King Solomon of the Bible was a real guy. The Bible says that King Hiram of Tyre provided lumber and craftsmen to help King Solomon build his temple to God. In return, King Solomon sent Hiram oil, wheat, and wine, and a parcel of land in northern Israel called Kabul. If that was really the case, then maybe there's some evidence of it here in Kabul.
King Hiram named this area the land of Kabul. It's a fertile land then and now. And if you look into what we found within the structure, we found mostly storage jars. It is a storage facility.
Storage for what?
Of what? For wheat that we found seeds of wine and olive oil. We have the capacity of about 13,000 liters.
That's a lot of storage.
It's a lot of storage.
They had lots of wine.
So what doing both in antiquity is collecting taxes. What kind of taxes? Wheat, wine, and olive oil.
Great.
And this was found in quantities.
This is a center for taxation.
Exactly. Now, this facility was destroyed by a huge fire. You don't know why it was destroyed.
We don't know who?
Fire, we don't know who.
So this place was burnt, right?
Heavy burned.
Now, if you have fire
right? Evidence of fire, but you don't have evidence of war. And they're burning the tax records and the tax stuff. Isn't it possible that what we have here is a tax revolt?
You have the evidence and you have your speculation, which is fine. But the burn is burn, period. I mean, we don't know.
You have a taxation center of foreigners, right?
Yeah.
It would seem to me that you have like a peasant revolt. If I was a farmer here, I wouldn't be happy if you just gave my land away. I was living in Israel until today. Now suddenly you gave me away and I'm living under the Phoenicians and they're taxing me to the bone. You know, everybody looks for monumental structures, which of course are important. But you found Solomon by finding Hiram. Here you find a synchronicity between the biblical story and the archaeology. You find a taxation building, well protected, with the evidence of tax, with the architecture. You're finding the footprint of Hiram.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I feel like I'm standing at a site where King Hiram and King Solomon might have stood.
There is a core of evidence in the Bible that you can and should rely on.
I'm amazed. Can I go visit the taxation center?
Sure,
I'd
yeah.
normally avoid, revenue services, but since this one seems to be defunct.
Zvigal's findings here at Kabul may not be irrefutable evidence of Solomon, but it does seem to show evidence of a transaction between the Phoenicians and the king of Israel back in the 10th century BCE, evidence that corresponds with the biblical story. Santa, the Easter Bunny, and the Davidic line are safe for the time being, especially when you consider all I've seen at Megiddo, Hatzor, and Gezer, 3 identical gates at 3 ancient cities that the Bible says Solomon fortified. When I look back on all the archaeology I've seen, I can't help but wonder, if the Bible is wrong and Solomon had nothing to do with any of this, then who did? Unless someone can come up with a theory that can answer that question, I'm keeping my bets on Solomon.
Look at this place! I love it!
He's a tall man.